Welcome to this episode of ACG's Growth TV. I'm your host, Katie Mulligan, and I'm joined today by Michael Vaccarella, partner and national leader in the private equity and transaction advisory services group at Wipfli, the sponsor of today's episode. Michael joins me to talk about the risks posed by employee fraud in a deal and how to spot fraud during due diligence. Michael, thanks for joining me on Growth TV.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate the chance to have a good discussion here.
Can you start by kind of defining, what we mean when we talk about employee-related fraud, and then maybe a sense of, the type of fraud incidents that you see come to light during M&A deals?
Sure. The big F word, as we call it, it's a tough one to kind of stomach through in a deal. Many a times we're not quote unquote, responsible for finding fraud, but it does pop up quite often. Employee related is probably the most preeminent in that case, because it is, if we take a step back and talk about the fraud triangle, you've got opportunity, motivation, and rationalization that gets done by that employee. And it's really to deceive, and to benefit their pocketbook. And in some cases, there's unintentional fraud. They're either pushed into it by the owner, and that employee, isn't acting out. So we see all kinds. Anecdotally, it was years ago now, but we were working for a PE sponsor that, put us out. We had two deals in one spot. Then we were going back and forth on two separate related deals, separate but related. And there was fraud at both. We saw one where there was I'll call it a payroll tax issue. I'll call that one a little bit more unintentional. The bookkeeper was not sending in the checks to the payroll, to the IRS for payroll taxes. That one was a fun one, and she had them all in her drawer. So that's, we can talk about, searching for fraud, but it is sometimes in the drawer. The other one was definitely they were kind of hiding cash due to scrap metal recycling. So that was a fun one too. So I'll keep names silent just to protect the innocent, but yeah, absolutely. Those things come up few and far between, but that was one heck of a day.
And it sounds like those two incidents were both in physical locations. Have you seen an uptick in this type of fraud now that so many people are working remotely?
Yeah. It's definitely, I think people realize that opportunity is there more now, because there is not that chance for any of the diligence teams, or at least what's coming back now. We're starting to see, more on-site work. But that opportunity for the last 2 years was basically, I'll say more, it was more prevalent because we weren't in the room and interrogating bookkeepers and owners and other people that are involved in the employee side, salesmen, trying to figure out, what they're doing. We don't get to see them sweat on camera, unless it's a little more difficult. And fidget and those type of things. So it's definitely, from an interrogation standpoint, that's gone down. So the opportunity is definitely up. But I think overall the opportunity is there, and people still rationalize it, especially in a down economy that we're having now. I think that's perked everybody's ears up and eyes wide open, because employees are struggling, frankly, not getting paid as much as their raises are not going up, as indicative of the 90% inflation that it feels like when you hit the grocery store. So tough situations for a lot of people. So I think that rationalization is there, and the motivation is there as well. So.
And as far as this employee-related fraud goes and spotting it, are there particular red flags that you pay attention to when you're working on a transaction?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and the red flags for us typically are the traditional, when we're talking with either the bookkeeper, CFO, controller, kind of understanding that the story that we got from upper level management is different from the stories we're getting from the accounting folks. We have to ask the questions, and some of it, those questions are, harder to ask. Be like, are you employing any, legal aliens? Are you paying cash to quote unquote employees, even though they're not employees, they're more subcontractors. We had one where they were paying with gas cards, like they were paying subcontractors with gas cards, and like they were just fine with it. That's not exactly, right. Let's call it that.
Sure.
So, I think those are issues that come up quite often. But those red flags pop when you ask the questions, and it's kind of a low tech scenario, because you really just need to be there and ask the questions of both management and the accounting staff, and sometimes the IT staff.
So, Michael, what are one or two key takeaways that you would want someone watching this video to walk away with?
Sure. Definitely, kind of ratcheting back to, deal size matters. In most cases, your add-ins and tuck-ins are going to be a little smaller, lack of accounting sophistication, things of that nature. So you really want to hone in on those. Definitely, we like to see a cash proof done for those situations, because, you got to match bank and book pretty quickly. Another really is honing in on payroll. I think whether it's done internally is a bigger red flag. Externally with a payroll provider or a PEO like Insperity, you definitely should be asking for, and we've done this, countless times and actually caught fraud 3 times, asking for a payroll changes report. We'll see controllers or bookkeepers change their pay multiple times during the year to give themselves little raises. As the opportunity presents itself, and if you get that payroll changes report from the provider, you can be like, oh, why did this person pay go up and down, on 3 different times throughout the year? So you don't always, see it, but it's worth asking, because it's another third party, look. You have to go outside of asking the same employee, the same type of questions. So third party verification is always best.
It's a fascinating topic. Thank you so much for coming on Growth TV to talk about it, Michael.
No problem. Happy to be here. Thank you.